asked yourself why the court system is important? Throughout history, people have had disputes. As societies developed, they needed an orderly system to resolve these disputes. The system in this country is known today as the court of law. We have a unique document in this country, the Constitution. The Constitution provides the framework for the government of the United States.
Among other things, it provides for the presidency, Congress, and the Supreme Court.
States are free to make any laws of their own that don't conflict with the Constitution or other federal laws. The Constitution and the laws that Congress makes under it are the law throughout the United States. But each state has its own constitution, governor, legislature, and courts. The United States Constitution is the highest law in the United States. The concept of the rule of law can be traced back to ancient Greece. Aristotle put it this way:
Law should govern. In a democratic society like ours, the people are the source of government authority. Their elected representatives establish the laws, and no member of society, including the leaders of government, is immune from those laws.
The Constitution requires all government officers of the United States and the various states, including the President, the Justices of the Supreme Court, members of Congress, governors, state judges, and state legislators, to pledge to uphold the Constitution. These oaths affirm that the rule of law is superior to the rule of any human leader anywhere in the United States. And just in case you are wondering what things might be like without the rule of law,
Most likely, lawless anarchy, where no one would be safe, or a dictatorship, where individual rights could be wiped out at the whim of untouchable leaders.
doesn't sound all that great to me.
And that's why the rule of law is key to the ordered liberty of this country. And for the rule of law to be protected, we have the court system.
The courts serve a very important purpose in our democratic society.
All too often, we only see the courts for their obvious functions, to try those charged with criminal acts or to settle disputes between parties.
However, our courts do a lot more than that. The courts are for you and me. They protect our individual rights, assure that no one is above the law,
And ensure that Congress, the President, and the state governments don't exceed the authority or limits of the federal and state constitutions.
The United States Constitution sets up the federal government, and it does it by creating 3 branches. Now, the framers of this Constitution were really smart when they did it, because they shied away from giving any one of these 3 branches, the legislative, the executive, or the judicial, too much power. And they did this by letting each of the 3 branches encroach just a little bit onto what the other 2 branches can do. And naturally enough, they called this a system of checks and balances. And it works just spiffy.
So yes, it is a little bit like leaning 3 broomsticks together. And as we all know, that can prove a little tricky. So the system of checks and balances isn't without problems or ambiguities. However, the system does force the 3 branches to be accountable to each other and to work together.
Our friends at the judiciary have certain responsibilities. Among those responsibilities, they decide how the laws of the nation or the state should be interpreted, and they have the power to declare laws or executive acts unconstitutional.
It is also important to grasp the concept of independence of the judicial branch. The idea behind this is that the judiciary, although it is still subject to a few checks from other branches, and I'll get into that, really does operate pretty much independent from them. So under the United States Constitution, you remember I said that the President appoints federal judges and the Senate has to confirm them. Okay, but once that is done, the judge is in for life. As a result, federal judges are able to apply the law and make decisions as they think best. That means that they can make the decisions without fear of reprisals from anyone.
And the federal judiciary is a co-equal, independent branch of government. And our duty then is to ensure the rule of law is respected. We are bound to make fair and impartial decisions, whether we are sitting as state judges enforcing state law, or whether we are ruling in a federal case where the court has jurisdiction.
This isn't about individuals. What it's about is the law and the interpretation of the law and the application of the law fairly and impartially to everyone.
So we've all heard about the Supreme Court, which in the United States is the final authority on the interpretation of the U.S. Constitution, as well as the federal constitutionality of state laws.
So let's imagine how you might get your case to the Supreme Court. You could have started in a federal district court, or you could have started in one of these special federal courts. You could have started in a state trial court, and if you lost there, you would have gone to your state court of appeals and state Supreme Court. If you went as far as you could in state court, and if your case raised the right kind of issues, then you could ask the U.S. Supreme Court to hear your case.
Wow, that's a lot of courts. But I hear you asking, what exactly are the differences between federal courts and state courts?
Jurisdiction is the key word here. Jurisdiction refers to the kinds of cases a court is authorized to hear.
95% of all litigation in this country are in state courts. So only 5% of the litigation in this country is in federal court.
The basic rule is that the state courts have general jurisdiction. They have jurisdiction over any matter unless there's a specific rule that says they don't, like they don't have jurisdiction over a matter of exclusively federal law. Patent cases, environmental law cases, those are examples. On the other hand, the federal court is just the opposite. It only has power. It is a court of limited jurisdiction, having authority only on the matters Congress has explicitly described.
Federal courts were established by the U.S. Constitution and by Congress, mainly to decide disputes involving the Constitution and laws passed by Congress. State courts are established by state constitutions and legislatures. Within a state, there are also local courts that are established by cities and by other municipalities, with authorization from the state legislature.
Some states contain more than one federal judicial district, but Oregon has only one. So our federal district court is called the U.S. District Court for the District of Oregon. Oregon's U.S. District Court serves the whole state, and in order to do so, it has courthouses and hears cases in Eugene, Medford, Pendleton, and Portland. So let's zoom out a little. Each federal district court is in one of the 13 judicial circuits for the United States Courts of Appeals. So the Court of Appeals decides appeals from the district courts within its circuit. The U.S. District Court for the District of Oregon is in the 9th Circuit. The 9th Circuit just happens to be the largest of all 13 courts of appeals in the United States. It includes 9 states and 2 territories. Its headquarters is in San Francisco, but in Oregon, the 9th Court of Appeals hears oral arguments at the Pioneer Courthouse in Portland.
Hello and welcome to Courts, 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 a fun game for the whole family. We hope it keeps you on the straight and narrow. Let's meet tonight's contestants. With us this evening we have Jason, Arlene, and last but not least we have Hui. Contestants, let's play the Oregon State Court Challenge. Today, the Oregon State Court system consists of the Oregon Supreme Court, the Oregon Court of Appeals, the Oregon Tax Court, and the Circuit Courts. Contestants, hands on your gavels. First question, what is the highest court in the Oregon Judicial Branch? Yes, Jason.
The Oregon Supreme Court.
Correct. Follow-up question, how many elected justices serve on this court? Arlene?
7.
Correct. And here's the bonus question. What's the only court that can reverse or modify a decision of the Oregon Supreme Court? Yes, hui.
I remember the United States Supreme Court.
That's correct. But as I'm sure you folks at home know, that only applies in certain cases. For most cases tried in Oregon courts, the Oregon Supreme Court has the final word. All right, contestants, next question, hands on your gavels here. The state of Oregon is divided into how many judicial districts? 25, 27, or 36? Arlene, quick draw.
27.
That's correct.
But there's 36 counties in Oregon.
Yes, but Arlene is right. The state is divided into 27 judicial districts, each of which has one or more counties. Here's a handy-dandy graphic that those whizzes in production made earlier. Take a look. State law determines that the number of judges elected in each district is generally based on the population and the volume of cases. Because some Oregon counties have relatively small populations and caseloads, the legislature has combined them into multi-county judicial districts. All right, well done, contestants. Join us real soon on Courts, Courts, Courts when we'll play Which Court, What Crime?